Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivarikacharya Ashkutarashta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivarikacharya Ashkutarashta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samayata Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21, Conversation between Manu and Kardama, Text 10 and Text 11. Please repeat. Kiritinam Kundalinam Kiritinam Kundalinam Shankachakra Gadadharam Shankachakra Gadadharam Shvetotpala Kridannakam Shvetotpala Kridannakam Manasparsha Smitekshanam Manasparsha Smitekshanam Kiritanam Kundalinam Shankachakra Gadadharam Shvetotpala Kridanakam Manasparsha Smitekshanam Kiritinam Kundalinam Shankachakra Gadadharam Shvetotpala Kridanakam Manasparsha Smitekshanam Kiritinam, adorned with a crown. Kundalinam, wearing earrings. Shankha, conch. Chakra, disc. Gada, mace. Dharam, holding. Shveta, white. Utpala, lily. Kridanakam, plaything. Manaha, heart. Sparsha, touching. Smita, smiling. Ikshanam, and glancing. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc, and mace in 3 of his hands, and a white lily in the 4th. He glanced about in a happy, smiling mood, whose sight captivates the hearts of all devotees. Text 11. Vinyasta charanambojam amsadeshe gurutmataha drishtva khevastitam vakshaha shriyam kaustubakandaram. Translation and purport. A golden streak on his chest, the famous Kaustuba gem suspended from his neck. He stood in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of Garuda. Purport. The descriptions in verses 9 to 11 of the Lord in his transcendental eternal form are understood to be descriptions from the authoritative Vedic version. These descriptions are certainly not the imagination of Kardama Muni. The decorations of the Lord are beyond material conception, as admitted even by impersonalists like Shankaracharya. Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has nothing to do with the material creation. The varieties of the Transcendental Lord, His body, His form, His dress, His instruction, His words, are not manufactured by the material energy, but are all confirmed in the Vedic literature. By performance of yoga, Kardama Muni actually saw the Supreme Lord as He is. There was no point in seeing an imagined form of God after practicing yoga for 10,000 years. The perfection of yoga, therefore, does not terminate in voidness or impersonalism. On the contrary, the perfection of yoga is attained when one actually sees the personality of Godhead in His eternal form. The process of Krishna consciousness is to deliver the form of Krishna directly. The form of Krishna is described in the authoritative Vedic version Brahma Samhita. His abode is made of Chintamani, stone, and the Lord plays there as a cowherd boy and is served by many thousands of gopis. These descriptions are authoritative, and a Krishna-conscious person takes them directly, acts on them, preaches them, and practices devotional service as enjoined in the authoritative scriptures. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapte Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpaturubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So how have we gotten to the discussion now between Manu and Kardama? If you remember the last chapter, there's two types of creations. There's Sarga and Visarga. So the Sarga creation is when Mahavishnu himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, gives all the ingredients which are required for creation, right? Like earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Krishna mentions in the Gita that these are the 8 constituents of the material energy, along with so many other things. And then Brahma takes that and he engineers that to make different forms. And he gives the souls the bodies that they deserve based on the karma that they've performed previously. So we were discussing in the previous chapter about how Lord Brahma created different types of living entities. He gave different things to different living entities. Like, for example, you remember the Asuras, they took the twilight. The demigods, they took the daylight. And the previous chapter, it ended with the best of Lord Brahma's creations, which were said to be the Manus. So the Manus are the progenitors of mankind, they're the Prajapatis, and Lord Brahma gave the Manus the form of human beings. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll see that Krishna also, I think it's in Uddhava Gita section, Krishna himself mentions that of all different types of forms, 8.4 million different types of forms, Krishna says that he has a special liking towards the human form of life. Krishna has a special liking towards the human form of life. Because in the human form of life, there is just the right amount of an enjoyment and suffering as well. And because there's just the right amount of enjoyment and suffering, the human being doesn't get carried away with excessive suffering. You'll see if there's too much suffering, then it'll be hard to practice Krishna consciousness. If there's too much suffering. And if there's too much enjoyment also, it'll be very hard to remember Krishna as well. So in this Martya Loka, in this middle planetary system, we have everything in the right amount, and it's a very favorable situation. It's a very favorable situation for us to practice Krishna consciousness, especially in the human form of life. So, because Lord Brahma created the Manus, of course, this chapter is now talking about the descendants of the first Manu. And the first Manu is Swayambhuva Manu. Now, Swayambhuva Manu had 5 children. He had 3 daughters and he had 2 sons. So, you may ask, why is Srimad Bhagavatam? It's a transcendental literature. It's Paramahamsa Samhita. It's meant for those who are completely liberated from the bondage of this mature world. It's meant for the Atmaramas. What is Srimad Bhagavatam doing talking about lineages, proliferating lineages in the mature world? Increasing the amount of living entities in this mature world. I thought Krishna wants us to all go back home, back to Godhead. Well, Krishna being the Supreme Father wants to facilitate his conditioned souls to experience this mature world and fulfill their material desires so that they can come to the realization that this mature world is actually not a place of enjoyment. They cannot enjoy separately from Krishna. If he didn't create such a facility like the mature world for such living entities, how will they learn that lesson? If they remained in the spiritual world, they'll remain in a dissatisfied manner. If we are in the spiritual world and we are thinking, it would be good if I was adored like Krishna, if I had worshipped like Krishna, right? That's what we understand the reason why we fell down. So if Krishna didn't create this facility of the mature world for us, it would be a bit of a difficult situation for us to remain in the spiritual world and have these perverted feelings. So Krishna has created this mature world for us to play out these desires and for us to come to that factual realization, to purify ourselves. And the reason why we understand Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us all these different lineages is because it is also Krishna's instruction to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma's devotional service to Krishna is to create this mature world and to fill this mature world with living entities. That is his devotional service to Lord Krishna. And that is what Lord Brahma wanted his sons to do as well, like the 4 Kumaras. But they disagreed, and therefore Brahma got angry with them. And then Rudra came from that. We have a verse here from chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, which is called Karma Yoga. Text 10. It's a famous verse. Saha yagya praja srishtva puruvacha prajapati anena prasavishadvam eshavostvishta kamaduk. So this is referring to Lord Brahma. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifices for Vishnu and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna," sacrifice, "because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things." Krishna is telling to Arjuna that he instructed Lord Brahma to send forth in this material world, to fill this material world with living entities. Specifically here in this verse, he's saying mankind, men and demigods. But not just that. Just like if you're cast out into the sea and someone throws your life vest or rope, like that, Lord Brahma and Lord Krishna have thrown into the material world a rope so that we don't drown in this ocean of material existence. And what is that rope? That rope is sacrifices to Lord Vishnu. And that is what we are seeing Kardama Muni is doing here. We can see Kardama Muni has material desires. He admits that to Lord Vishnu, who is before him now. He admits to him that he has material desires. He does want to get married, he does want to have children, but he's doing it in the right way. He's meditating for 10,000 years, and Lord Vishnu is directly coming before him. So he's following the instructions of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And if we do that, what happens? Text 9 in chapter 3. Does anyone know what it is? No? Yagyartat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma konteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Lord Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and that way you'll always remain unattached from feelings of bondage. If we had the Supreme Personality of Godhead as our very son, then it would be natural for us to become very attached to him. But just see the renunciation of Kardama Muni. Kapila Dev himself comes as his son. And as soon as Kapila Dev is born, Kardama Muni leaves his wife, he leaves his newly born son, and he retires and he takes sannyas. This is the result of enjoying in the mature world in the proper way, in the prescribed way, which is through sacrifices for Vishnu. Kardama Muni enjoyed in this mature world to a degree that we cannot imagine. For hundreds and hundreds of years, he was flying in a celestial mansion that he created out of his yogic power. You know, this was a huge spaceship with palaces and gardens and streams and waterfalls and birds and very beautiful creation. He created it himself and he enjoyed there. Now, naturally, if that was our position, we would get entangled more and more and more. But he qualified himself. He had the adhikar because previously to the enjoyment, he engaged in sacrifices to Lord Vishnu. So that is why Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining to us all these different lineages. Because it's showing to us that, yes, Lord Brahma's instruction, or rather Krishna's instruction to Lord Brahma is being fulfilled, and pious living entities are filling this universe. That's one thing. But also, within these lineages, great personalities are coming as well. And that's why they are worth mentioning. Like Srila Prabhupada says, why should we be so attached to a battle that happened 5,000 years ago? Why? Only because Krishna was present there in that battlefield. Otherwise, we have no business in discussing about just an ordinary fight. So in the same way, why should we discuss about lineages, who was the son of which person, and then this person married this person? Why do we care about all these things? Because each one of the sons and daughters of Swayambhuva Manu gave rise to very pious devotees. Uttanapad was the father of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj directly saw Prishnigarbha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Priyavrata, the second son, or rather the first son of Swayambhuva Manu. From his lineage came Rishabdev, Maharaj Gaya, Bharat Maharaj himself, and then the three daughters were Akuti, Prasuti, and Devahuti. So just, I think, few verses before, it was talking about these three daughters. So Akuti married a great sage known as Ruchi. And then Prasuti married Daksha. And in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll hear about the Daksha Yagya. Right? So Daksha's daughter was Sati. And Sati married. So isn't it worthwhile to talk about the lineage of Prasuti as well? It is not ordinary. And here we're seeing the lineage of the third daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, who is Devahuti. And from Devahuti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly appeared in this material world. So that is why Srimad Bhagavatam may talk about material things, but it has a spiritual purpose behind them. And by reading these so-called material topics, actually it's spiritualizing us. It's allowing us to advance transcendentally. Because these material activities are directly dovetailed and related to Krishna. That's one thing. Now, the second point, important point, is that Srila Prabhupada is saying here in the purport, or rather, let's look at the translation for text 10. Adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc, and mace in 3 of his hands, and a white lily in the 4th. We're seeing here descriptions of Lord Vishnu. Now we can take heart and we can put a lot of faith in Srimad Bhagavatam, because Srimad Bhagavatam is not cheating us as to who the identity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. When His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagar Maharaj was here many years back, we were up to the Vritrasura pastime in Canto 6 of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he said that the very fact that this Vritrasura pastime is mentioned not only in Srimad Bhagavatam, but is also mentioned in other Puranas, in other Vedas. In other words, this pastime is cross-referenced. Maharaj was saying it is cross-referenced in multiple different Puranas, multiple different Vedic literatures. And because it is cross-referenced, and because these Puranas were created by different authors at different times, the authenticity of this pastime is increased. Right? It's a factual event because different authors are talking about the exact same thing with the exact same details in different scriptures. Right? So, in the same way, we see that in the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Vishnu is described in a certain way. In the 2nd canto is described in a certain way. In the 3rd canto is described in a certain way. Throughout the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Vishnu is described in the exact same way. In fact, I'll bet you, without reading today's 2 verses, you already knew what Lord Vishnu looked like. Right? You already knew that Lord Vishnu has crown, he has earrings, he has 4 arms, and he is holding Shankha Chakra Gada Padma. You already knew that. How did you know that? You knew that because you had read about these things somewhere else. In another part of Srimad Bhagavatam. In another scripture. Maybe you heard Srila Prabhupada talking about this. So the form of Lord Vishnu, the form of Lord Krishna, which Brahma saw at the beginning of creation, the form of Lord Vishnu that Kardama Muni is seeing, the form of Lord Vishnu that Dhruva Maharaj saw, the form of Lord Vishnu that so many countless devotees saw throughout time is exactly the same, and Lord Vishnu is described by these devotees in exactly the same way. And that is very important, because without a good fund of knowledge, as Srila Prabhupada says, human beings, we are prone to mental speculation, and we see God in different ways. Just like, for example, more, you could say, pantheistic people. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the second canto of Bhagavatam, or you could say more primitive people. Of course, we think nowadays primitive people means people who live in, tribal people or something like that. But according to the opinion of Srimad Bhagavatam, even today's highly technologically advanced civilization is also primitive, because advancement of human civilization is not dependent on material advancement. It is rather dependent on the advancement of one's consciousness. So we may have our iPhones and Samsungs and high-tech laptops and this, but we are still primitive in the opinion of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the point I'm trying to say is, what was I going to say? Yes. So Lord Vishnu is described in exactly the same way. So the primitive people, they may consider God to be, for example, lightning, right? Something very ferocious in material nature. They see God in that way. Or some people, like, for example, the Greeks, they saw God as Atlas. Maybe you've seen a picture of Atlas, or the statue of Atlas, right? Carrying that big globe, carrying that earth. Why? Because the material creation needs to be sustained by someone. So they think that God is sustaining the material creation by carrying this heavy load on his back. Or, as we know, God is the oldest person, because he's been around since the beginning of this creation. Therefore, he must have white hair, he must have a white beard. He's a very old person. So these are all mental speculations of what we consider God to be. In fact, God is seen in different ways by different people. For example, this is an article which I came across some time back. 5 different ways in which people can see God. We can see God as a genie. Everyone knows what a genie is. Genie is, if you remember Aladdin, the cartoon Aladdin, right? So there's that magic lamp, and whenever you want some wish to be fulfilled, what happens? You rub the lamp and out comes the genie, and then you can make your wish and the genie will fulfill that wish. So those who are after material facilities, karma kanda, like that, they have a relationship with God, yes, but it is through that genie aspect. God is there to supply me with the fulfillment of my material desires. Sakama bhaktas, right? Like the demigods, Sakama bhaktas. Yes, we believe in Krishna, we believe in Lord Vishnu, and yes, we are surrendered to him, but we'll only approach him and we'll only actually really pray to him when we are in danger, when we want something to be fulfilled for ourselves. So this is the genie aspect. I consider God to be a genie, which means I consider God to be the fulfiller of my material desires. This is the prosperity religion aspect. Sometimes, nowadays we see religions, they're based on material prosperity. We will only pray to God. We'll only have a relationship with God. We'll like God, we'll love God. Why? Because he gives us material things. He gives us nice clothes, nice food to eat. And therefore, praise the Lord. Because he gives us what we want. Right? So this is the genie aspect. The second aspect in which we can see God is as a fireman. So what does a fireman do? When there's a big fire, right? People dial 000, and then the fire truck comes. Out of the fire truck comes firemen, and they put out the fire. So as Srila Prabhupada says in his purports to the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, this material world is just like a big forest fire. Samsara dava, nala lida loka. And the living entities are burning, they're getting scorched in this fire of this material world. And Prabhupada says that this fire is lit by itself. And that's the nature of this material world. In other words, you don't have to cause distress or misery to yourself or to someone else. It will come naturally. Because happiness, material happiness and happiness distress are two sides of the same coin. If you are experiencing material happiness right now, take it for sure that you will very soon experience material distress as well. If you're experiencing material distress right now, just around the corner is material happiness for you. Two sides of the same coin, inseparable. Therefore, Krishna says, Matara sparshas tu konteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada agama payano nityas tam stitikshasva bharata. So the devotee tolerates both happiness and distress and doesn't get sidetracked by either. So some people see God as a fireman. Yes, there's troubles in my life. There's birth, death, disease, old age. Therefore, I will pray to God to put out these fires in my life. So that is how we have a relationship with God. As someone who alleviates us. It's a very therapeutic relationship. I'm feeling ill, so the cure to this illness is to pray to God and He will take away all my distresses. This is another way. The third way is seeing God as a taskmaster. Taskmaster means He's always testing us. Right? It's a very negative way to see God. Taskmaster means that we're not qualified, we're sinful, we have to repent, and God is there just to trial us. That's a very sadistic, it's a very depressing relationship. Another one is that God is always there to inflict, this is the fourth one, God is there to inflict pain upon us. Yes, this is one as well actually. People see that. You can see atheists, for example. Prabhupada says that atheists actually indirectly believe in God. Because theist means one who believes in God. Atheist means one who doesn't believe in God. That means for you to not believe in God, God must exist in the first place. Because you cannot disbelieve in something that doesn't exist. This is Prabhupada's logic. So therefore, atheists also have a relationship with God. How? They believe that God doesn't exist. Right? Just like we see in Vedic Shastras, right? The demons, like Kamsa, Jarasandha, right? Or Hiranyakshipu, they acknowledged Lord Vishnu. They acknowledged Lord Vishnu. But they considered him just as an ordinary person. They considered themselves to be more powerful. So this is the Vedic understanding of atheist. Vedic understanding of atheist means that they acknowledge Lord Vishnu, they understand who he is. I mean, they understand his existence, but they don't understand or appreciate his supremacy, and they don't appreciate the fact that we should surrender to Lord Vishnu. So the fourth relationship is that seeing God as a perpetrator. Seeing God as someone who's always inflicting us with troubles. And the fifth one, the fifth relationship, is seeing God as a friend. And those who see God as a friend are very happy in this world. Because then they can move towards building a relationship with God. It is very difficult to build a relationship with someone who is a perpetrator, someone you think is a taskmaster, someone you think is there just to call upon him when you need him. Whereas a friend is there through thick and thin. Whether you're experiencing happiness in life or whether you're going through distresses in life, a friend is always there. So the super soul is known as the best friend of the soul because Krishna is always there with us. And because we know that Krishna is always there with us in the heart as a friend, our scriptures talk about developing an even more intense relationship with Krishna. And this is the Rasa Tattva, which Mahaprabhu taught to Rupa Goswami. You can see Lord Krishna as your master. You can see Lord Krishna as your friend. And when we say friend, we mean like very intimate friend, right? Because even those who see Lord Krishna as their master, they also consider him to be a friend as well. So, master, friend, considering Lord Krishna to be your father or being the father of Lord Krishna, and considering Lord Krishna to be your dearmost lover. And whenever we talk about the form of the Supreme Personality Godhead, right? Because this whole verse, this whole purport is talking about the form, the characteristic form, which doesn't change. Then comes the aspect of developing a relationship with Krishna. And that is sometimes where it is very difficult for us to develop a relationship with Krishna. Because it takes a very long time to build trust. We all know that. So just like, for example, if you want to take initiation from a guru, then why do we have that shelter period? Right? According to the rule book, we are supposed to be under the shelter of a spiritual master for at least 6 months. That period is given so that we can deepen our relationship with the guru. We can understand more about the guru, and the guru can understand more about us. And that relationship can thicken, the faith can increase, so then we can finally take officially we can take shelter of that spiritual master through Diksha. So the same thing with Krishna as well. Whenever we want to come to the stage of having a loving relationship with someone, it takes time to build faith. It takes time and patience and determination to come to the stage of pure love. We cannot take to the path of rag bhakti straight away. And that is why Srila Prabhupada has prescribed Vaidhi bhakti, performing the rules and regulations. There's an old, I'll finish with this story actually. There's an old folk tale in the Asian culture. I think it's the Korean culture. So it's a story of one lady, and she was married, obviously. She had a husband, and the husband, he went to war. For many, many years he had gone to war. And then finally, after all these years, the husband came back. But he was changed. He was not the same person as he was before going to war. And before going to war, they had a very nice, loving relationship. But the whole aspect of fighting and seeing all these ghastly, gruesome scenes changed his mind. He was always very grumpy, angry, easily disturbed. And consequently, she was finding it very difficult to reinitiate that relationship that she had once with him. So according to the story, on top of a big hill in the village, there lived a hermit, like a sadhu or something like that. And people used to go to this sadhu for, to cure themselves of diseases or, to get some material things. And the sadhu sometimes used to bless the people, sometimes used to make different potions, Ayurvedic potions or something. He used to give it to the people, and he used to heal the people. So she was thinking, should I go to this hermit? Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know, maybe this hermit may not be able to cure this situation. So she delayed for many, many days and many, many weeks she delayed. But then finally, it was unbearable. She couldn't have a relationship with her husband. It was very difficult. So finally she got the courage to walk up that huge hill, knock on the door. She opened the door, it creaked open, and the hermit was sitting facing the opposite way. And as soon as she came in, he asked, "Yes, why have you come?" And then she could understand that he was reading her mind. He told her, "Sit down. So I understand that you have some issues in your relationship. What is it that you would like me to do for you?" So she explained that, this was the situation before my husband went to the war. This is the situation now. Can you please heal our relationship? Then he said, for this problem, I can't make a magic potion. I can't give you blessings. There's only one thing that will help solve this relationship. You have to secure it. You have to get it for me. And what was that? You have to get the whiskers, one of the whiskers, from a live tiger. So if you can get the whisker from a live tiger, then I'll be able to get that and maybe say some mantras and solve the issue, solve the problem. But you have to get this whisker for me. So she thought, how am I going to get a whisker from a live tiger? I'll get eaten up. Right? But then she was very determined to, solve this relationship issue. So on the first day, she knew that then, on another hill somewhere in the forest, there lived a tiger. So on the first day, she made some food, and a plate of food. She put it on the plate, and she took it. She tiptoed up the hill, just outside the cave of the tiger. Very scared she was, and she put the plate of food just outside, and she ran away. And no one came out of the cave. What to do? So then, some days later, again she tried. And she cooked something really tasty, really aromatic. Again, she tiptoed up the hill and she put it just outside the cave. And then this time she heard a growl. And she was watching. And, that nighttime, the tiger actually slowly came out of the cave and he just smelt the food, but then went back into the cave. He didn't eat it. What to do? Then, days later, weeks later, again she cooked something. Again she went up the hill and again she placed it, very scared, shivering, and she placed it outside the cave. And this time she ran back, and then after about an hour, the tiger came out, smelled the food, and slowly started to eat. And then went back into the cave. Like this she kept doing, day after day, week after week. And then after many, many months, the tiger could hear her coming up the hill. He was anticipating her coming up the hill. And she would put the food in front of the tiger, and the tiger would slowly come out, and he would not harm her. And gradually her fear of the tiger also went away. She placed the food. She went back, and the tiger was eating. So she thought, okay, now I'm slowly getting very close to this tiger. The relationship is building, and very soon I'll be able to get this whisker. So finally, after 6-7 months of doing this, she bought the plate of food again, put it outside. The tiger came out, and he wasn't growling. He was, I don't know what they do, purring. And the tiger came and ate the food and started to lick her, expressing his affection. And they both hugged each other. On this particular day, she had a scissor in her pocket. So as she was hugging the tiger, she took this scissor and quickly snipped one of the whiskers off. And put it in an envelope and put it in her pocket and ran far away. She achieved her goal. She ran down that hill and she ran up the other hill and she went to the hermit. And she said, finally, after 7-8 months, she said, finally I got that whisker from the live tiger. And the hermit took it out of the envelope and looked at it and he said, yes, indeed, this is a whisker from a live tiger. He took that whisker, he threw it into the fire. The whisker burnt to ashes. And she was crestfallen. All that effort to get that whisker, and then this hermit is just thrown into the fire. And the hermit told her that if you could spend all these weeks and months with developing so much patience, so much endurance, so much determination to develop a relationship with a tiger, why can't you do that with your own husband? Right? So this is the moral of the story. She wanted something which was there before, but she couldn't get it. She was expecting something out of the relationship without putting in the effort. But she was able to do that with the tiger. She proved it to herself. She proved it to the hermit. So the lesson that the hermit taught her was that the exact same thing that you did with this tiger, the exact same thing that you learned developing a relationship with this tiger, it would be much easier to do it with your husband. It just requires patience. It just requires perseverance. And that is what we need to cultivate also in bhakti. Because in bhakti, we can't expect things to just be happy and smooth sailing. There will be difficulties, and Krishna will test us. There's a verse in the Bible which says that God will not put us through tests which we cannot pass. Every test that Krishna puts us through, He makes sure that we can pass it. But we think we can't pass it. We think it's too difficult. But we can pass it. Every test that Krishna puts us in is an opportunity for us to, as Kunti Maharani says, to take shelter of Krishna more and to get closer with Krishna more as well. So that is what we are to learn from this Bhakti Yoga principle, that the form of Krishna is there, the form of Krishna is real, regardless of who sees the form of Krishna, regardless of which relationship they have with Krishna, the form of Krishna is the same. And as soon as there is form, then there is the relationship aspect as well. And that is where Bhakti Yoga comes. In other yoga systems, they don't believe that God has a form. They don't understand that God has a form. And therefore there's no such thing as cultivation of relationships. But in Bhakti Yoga, we can only advance by developing relationships. The Dhyan Yogi, the Ashtanga Yogi in the forest, he can advance in his Ashtanga Yoga by himself, sitting in the forest, doing his meditation. But a Bhakti Yogi cannot advance in that way. And we see what happened to Bharat Maharaj in the forest. He got misled by the deer. And Prabhupada said, if he only was in the association of devotees, then he could have finished off his Bhakti Yoga progress in that very lifetime. He was already on the Bhav platform. He was so close to Krishna Prema. So that is the importance of course, devotee association, but more importantly, also to develop that relationship with Krishna, understanding that his form is transcendental, understanding that we are transcendental as well. So I'll finish here. Any quick questions, comments? That is, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this extensively. He talks about the Panchopasana system, that the impersonalists, they will worship the form of Krishna, the form of Lord Vishnu specifically, to help them come to a certain level of advancement in their meditation. Because when one is a neophyte in meditation, it's easier for us to meditate on the form of something rather than to meditate on something formless. So, for example, there's a practice in yoga called Trataka. So this is a way that people develop mystic powers. So mystic powers, they develop through concentration, intense concentration. So through Trataka, what one does is one maybe lights a candle and one just stares at the candle, the tip of the candle, just with open eyes. One does not blink one's eyes. One stares at the candle and until tears start to come from your eyes. And just like how we say that the mind is dependent on the breath, right? The slower your breath, the more focused your mind is. So in the same way, another way is that the more fixed your eyesight is, your gaze is, the calmer your mind becomes as well. So these mystic yogis, they use this practice of Trataka to calm their mind, to pinpoint their mind on the object of meditation. But they do it on something which has form. They'll they'll draw a black dot on the wall and they'll stare at that. They'll stare at this candle like that. So the idea there, so for example, you're talking about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was an impersonalist. So these impersonalists, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, they will worship the form of Lord Vishnu to advance in their concentration and their meditation. And once they have sufficiently advanced, they reject the form of Lord Vishnu, and then they engage in their meditation on the impersonal Brahman. So Lord Vishnu, or the form of Lord Vishnu, is considered to be a stepping stone to come to impersonal, nirguna meditation. There's saguna and there's nirguna. So the saguna meditation is used as a stepping stone, it's used as a tool by them to come to nirguna dhyan. That's what I understand. Thinking like impersonal.
We tend to think Krishna to be just like us.
Then we have to read about the Aishwarya of Krishna. See, there's Aishwarya aspect and there's Madhurya aspect, right? So you're saying that, we will mistake Krishna to be just like us. Right? So then if we look at Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, Krishna is just like us. Right? The Brajabasis, they see Krishna as just like one of them. We're like, the villagers of Vrindavan, and Krishna is just like another villager of Vrindavan. We can do anything with him. He's our friend, we can wrestle with him, we can dance with him, we can feed him, dress him. So sometimes in the beginning, if we jump to that stage of just seeing Krishna just like one of us, then that is the danger that you're talking about. So along with that, before that actually, we should also thoroughly understand about the grandeur and the opulence of Krishna as well. Krishna is Aishwarya, nature, about how millions of universes are coming from Mahavishnu, about how Krishna himself is expanding into everyone's heart, about how the ocean is a representation of Krishna, about how the Himalayan mountains are a representation of Krishna. So sometimes it is necessary for us to focus on the Aishwarya aspect as well. And if we can appreciate the Aishwarya aspect,